Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be tackling something a lot of you have been asking about, investing in construction back in Uganda. It's a fantastic goal, but I've heard from so many of you how stressful it can be trying to manage a building project from, all the way over here,
Yeah.
the worries about quality, making sure the money's not being misused, all that. So, in this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack all that. We found this awesome YouTube webinar with a ton of different voices on the topic. And you won't believe this, but they've actually found this super unique solution that's being developed right now.
You know what really blows my mind is just how much potential we're talking about. When you look at the 2024-2025 Ugandan budget, it really paints this fascinating picture. So the GDP is sitting at $6 billion dollars, with construction making up about $2 billion dollars at it. But here's the crazy part. Remittances, the money Ugandans abroad are sending back home, that's projected at a whopping $4.8 billion dollars.
Whoa, hold on. So that's almost as much as the entire construction sector. That's wild. I mean, think about the impact that could have. But you're right, there are some serious risks that come with that kind of investment.
Oh, absolutely. And this webinar really dove into those fears a lot of Ugandans abroad have, like that constant worry about funds being misused, whether by family, friends, or even the construction companies themselves. And then there's the whole hassle of flying back and forth for supervision, the communication breakdowns, lack of accountability. It could be a mess.
It's tough, putting your heart, your savings into this dream and then constantly wondering in the back of your mind, is this going to be a nightmare? You hear all these stories about shoddy work materials falling apart, costs exploding. It's heartbreaking.
And that's exactly where this solution they talked about comes in. It's called Bid Digest. Basically, it aims to connect diaspora investors with reliable, trustworthy construction back home. It connects you with pre-vetted contractors and material providers, but it goes way beyond just being a directory.
Okay, I'm hooked. What makes Bid Digest so different?
Well, one of the coolest things is this milestone-based payment system. So instead of sending a huge chunk of money up front and crossing your fingers, the funds are only released when a specific stage of the project is actually verified as complete. It's all about minimizing risk and making sure everything's on track.
Makes sense. But how do they actually guarantee that each stage is done right? Do they have someone on site checking everything every step of the way?
That's where things get really cool. Bit Digest uses this cutting-edge technology called blockchain and something called smart contracts to create this incredibly transparent automated system. Now, I know what you're thinking, whoa, that sounds way too techy. But stick with me because it's actually super beneficial for someone like you.
Okay, I'm listening.
Just imagine having a permanent, unchangeable record of every single decision, every payment, every material used in your project. That's the beauty of blockchain. It's
Right.
like this shared digital ledger that everyone involved can access, so there's zero room for hidden transactions or arguments about what was agreed on.
So it's like this super detailed public record that prevents any shady stuff from happening.
You got it. And the smart contracts are like these digital referees that automatically take care of things based on what's been achieved. So let's say the first milestone is laying the foundation. Once that's done and verified, the smart contract automatically triggers the payment to the contractor from a secure escrow account.
Hmm.
No delays, no need for you to chase anyone down. It just happens.
So with Bid Digest, you get this extra layer of security and peace of mind, like having a trusted third party overseeing everything, even though you're miles away. That's pretty incredible.
It is. But we got to remember, technology is only part of the story. One of the speakers in this webinar, Dr. Francis, really emphasized that the human element is still absolutely essential. He talked about professionalism being the foundation of any successful construction project.
Okay, so what does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, Dr. Francis highlighted things like ethical behavior, a real commitment to quality and safety standards, and of course, open and honest communication. Basically everything that builds trust and confidence, which is crucial when you're investing from overseas.
It makes total sense that you'd want to work with someone who shares those values, especially when you're talking about building a home. So how does Bid Digest ensure that?
That's a great question. And we're going to dive into exactly how Bid Digest guarantees that professionalism is at the heart of every project. But first,
Hold that thought. We'll be back with all those details right after this. Okay, so we were just talking about how vital professionalism is in construction, right? Especially for us investing from overseas. And it seems like Bid Digest is really putting their money where their mouth is on that.
big time. It's not just about having a slick website and all the latest tech. It's about making sure the people involved, the contractors, the suppliers, everyone are operating with integrity and that commitment to quality.
You mentioned before that Bid Digest connects investors with pre-vetted contractors. So what does that vetting process actually look like?
Well, from what they talk about in the webinar, it's pretty intense. They look at things like the contractor's track record, their experience on similar projects, their financial stability, and of course, their reputation within the industry. They even have a system for double-checking qualifications and licenses, so you can be sure you're working with someone who actually knows their stuff.
That takes away a lot of the stress for someone like me who isn't on the ground in Uganda. It's like having a whole team of experts doing the background checks for you.
Exactly, and that feeling of trust is amplified by the way Bid Digest handles payments. Remember those milestone-based payments we talked about? How they help minimize risk? Well, there's an even deeper level of security there.
Oh, tell me more.
Okay, so let's say the first milestone for your project is finishing the foundation. You and the contractor agree on a price for that stage right. But instead of sending the money directly to them, it's held in a secure escrow account managed by Bid Digest.
Ah, so the money's there ready to go. But it's not released until the foundation is done and meets all the agreed upon standards. That's pretty smart.
It really is. It protects both you and the contractor. You know your money's safe and that it won't be paid out until the work is done. And the contractor knows they'll be paid fairly and on time once they've held up their end of the bargain.
Okay, that makes sense. But hold on, how do they actually confirm that the work is up to scratch? I mean, do they have people physically inspecting every single step of the project?
They do. Bid Digest has this whole network of independent professionals on the ground in Uganda who are responsible for verifying that each milestone is really truly completed.
Oh, wow.
So the contractor provides evidence like photos, videos, inspection reports, that kind of thing. And then Bid Digest sends someone out to physically check that the work matches what was agreed upon in terms of specs and quality.
Phew. That's a huge relief. I was wondering about. That's almost like having your own personal inspector on site, even though you might be thousands of miles away.
That's a great way to put it. And once that independent verification is done, the smart contract automatically releases the payment from that escrow account to the contractor. Boom. Everything is documented, transparent, and there's no room for arguments or misunderstandings.
This is starting to sound like the answer to all our prayers for anyone who's ever felt that anxiety about building from abroad. But let's be real for a second. Disagreements happen, right? What if the client's not happy with the work or there's a delay that no one saw coming?
That's a really good point. You're bound to have some bumps in the road with any construction project, no matter how well planned it is. But Bid Digest has a clear process for resolving disputes. And this is where that blockchain record we were talking about becomes super valuable.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does that work?
Well, because every little detail of the project, the initial agreement, the payment schedule, the proof of completion for each milestone, it's all recorded on that tamper-proof blockchain ledger. It basically acts as this neutral record of what was agreed to and what actually happened.
So there's no he said, she said, no relying on faulty memories. It's all right there in black and white, digitally signed and time-stamped.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about the blockchain being decentralized, meaning it's not controlled by any single entity. So even if Bid Digest itself was somehow involved in the dispute, that record stays neutral and tamper-proof, it creates this level of transparency and accountability that you just don't get with traditional construction.
This whole system is seriously impressive. It addresses so many of those fears that keep people awake at night when they're building from abroad.
It really does. But let's be honest, technology can be a little intimidating for some folks. I know I've definitely felt overwhelmed by new platforms or software before. Did the webinar touch on that at all?
They did. The speakers were adamant that Bid Digest is designed to be user-friendly. You don't need to be a tech genius or a blockchain whiz to navigate the platform. They made it clear that it's all laid out in a simple and intuitive way.
That's great to hear. Sounds like they put a lot of thought into making the technology accessible for everyone, regardless of their tech skills.
For sure. And I love how they're not just focusing on the tech, but also on the human side of things. Like we talked about before, they're really trying to build a network of trustworthy professionals who are committed to doing things the right way.
It's a pretty inspiring vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about building structures. It's about building trust, building relationships, and ultimately building a better future for Uganda's construction industry.
Yeah, it's like they're setting a new standard, not just for the diaspora, but for everyone involved in construction in Uganda. It makes you wonder if this kind of model could work in other countries too.
That's a fascinating thought. I mean, this combination of cutting-edge technology and that strong emphasis on ethical, transparent practices could really change the game for overseas investment and development all over the world.
The possibilities are endless. It's about so much more than just construction, you know? It's
Yeah.
about empowering people to invest in their homelands with confidence and peace of mind. It's about creating a win-win for everyone.
It's about turning dreams into reality and doing it in a way that benefits both the diaspora and the communities they're investing in.
That's a perfect way to sum it up. I hope this deep dive has been as eye-opening and inspiring for you as it has been for us. Remember, whether you're thinking about Bid Digest or exploring other options, the key takeaways here are transparency, accountability, and never being afraid to demand that level of professionalism. Keep those principles in mind, do your research, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of building a future you can be proud of.